I remember the day it all crumbled, the day my world shattered into a million pieces. It was a Tuesday, a day that started like any other. I woke up to the sound of coffee brewing and the smell of cinnamon rolls wafting through the house. My wife, Sarah, was humming to herself in the kitchen, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit us. As I sipped my coffee, I noticed her phone buzzing on the table. It was unusual for her to leave it unattended, especially with the screen lighting up repeatedly. Curiosity got the better of me. I glanced at the screen and saw a name that made my heart drop. Jake. I had heard that name before, a construction worker who had been working on our neighbor's house. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was just a work-related message. But when I saw the flirty emojis and the messages that hinted at something more intimate, my heart raced with disbelief. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. My hands trembled as I picked up the phone, reading through the text exchanges. Each word felt like a dagger, twisting deeper into my gut. How could she? My mind raced with questions. Had I been blind to the signs? Was all the love we shared just a facade? When Sarah walked back into the room, I couldn't contain my anger and confusion. "Who is Jake?" I demanded, my voice low but trembling with intensity. She froze, her eyes wide with panic. I could see the gears turning in her mind, trying to concoct a plausible excuse. "Just a guy from work," she replied, her voice weak. But I wasn't buying it. I threw the phone at her, the screen still lit with the damning messages. "Is this just a guy from work? Because it looks like you're getting a little too friendly." Her face drained of color, and for a moment I thought she might faint. The silence between us was suffocating, filled with unspoken words and accusations. "It's not what it looks like," she finally stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then what is it?" I shouted, the hurt boiling over. "You think I'm stupid? I trusted you, Sarah. I gave you everything." She started to cry, tears streaming down her face as she attempted to explain. "I never wanted to hurt you, it just happened. I was lonely, we were both busy with work and he was there. I didn't mean for it to get out of hand." Lonely. That word hit me like a freight train. I had been working long hours, but I thought we were in this together. I thought we had a partnership built on love and trust. "You were lonely," I echoed, incredulous. "So you decided to sleep with a construction worker. Is that really your excuse?" The betrayal stung like nothing I had ever felt before. In that moment, I felt like I was losing not just my wife, but the life I had built with her. The dreams we had, the plans for our future, it all felt like a cruel joke. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to make her feel the pain she had inflicted on me. Instead, I felt a cold detachment wash over me. I walked out of the house, my mind racing. I needed air, space to think. As I paced the street, I could feel the anger boiling inside me, but there was something else too, an unsettling calm. That's when I realized I wasn't just going to let this go. I was going to make her pay for the betrayal. I didn't know what the plan would be at that moment, but I felt a flicker of determination igniting within me. I would demolish her life just as she had shattered mine. I would make her feel the depths of my pain. The days following that confrontation were a blur of emotions, a chaotic mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I moved through life like a ghost, going through the motions at work while my mind replayed Sarah's betrayal on a constant loop. I felt like I was in a dark tunnel with no light at the end. Each time I saw her, the anger would flare back up, but so would the remnants of love I still held for her. It was maddening. I spent nights lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wrestling with my thoughts. The reality of what she had done gnawed at me, and I found myself trapped in a cycle of hurt and disbelief. How could I have been so blind? How could she have done this to me? I had given her everything, my heart, my trust, my life. In quiet moments, I would think about our history, the laughter we shared, the dreams we had built together. I remembered our wedding day, the vows we exchanged, promising to support each other through thick and thin. It felt like a cruel joke now, those promises reduced to ash because of a construction worker who had built a foundation of lies beneath my very home. But as I sat alone in my thoughts, a darker realization began to take shape. I didn't just want to wallow in my pain, I wanted to take action. I wanted revenge. The thought terrified me, but it also exhilarated me. I began to craft a plan, methodically laying out each step like a blueprint for a house. First, I needed to gather information. I couldn't just confront her again without concrete proof of her infidelity. I needed to know everything about this Jake. I started by digging through her phone records and social media, anything that could lead me to him. It wasn't hard to find. She had been careless, leaving breadcrumbs of their affair in plain sight. I discovered that Jake was not just a construction worker. He was also a local player, known for his charm and good looks. I found photos of him on his social media, flexing muscles and flashing that cocky grin. I couldn't help but feel a surge of rage each time I looked at his face. This man had taken everything from me. I wanted to expose him, to strip away the facade of his perfect life, and show the world what he truly was, just a man who preyed on the vulnerabilities of others. I spent time stalking the construction site where he worked, watching him interact with my wife. I felt like a predator, lurking in the shadows, plotting my attack. Each time I saw him laugh with her, I felt my insides churn with fury. I wanted to scream, to confront him, but I held back. This was about more than just confronting him. It was about orchestrating a plan that would bring Sarah to her knees. I decided that the best way to execute my revenge was to expose the affair to our friends and family. I wanted to make sure that everyone knew the truth about Sarah's betrayal. I envisioned the look on her face when she realized that I had taken control of the narrative. I wanted to see her squirm, feel the shame of what she had done laid bare for all to see. But even as I plotted my revenge, I couldn't shake the feeling of moral conflict. Was I justified in doing this? Did I have the right to ruin her life in return for the hurt she caused me? I wrestled with these questions, knowing that revenge would come at a cost. It wouldn't just hurt her, it would hurt me as well. But the thought of her walking away unscathed, of continuing her life as if nothing had happened, was unbearable. As I continued to gather information, I felt a strange sense of power begin to fill the void left by my heartbreak. The more I learned about her affair, the more I felt like I was regaining control over my life. It was intoxicating. I began to feel like a puppeteer, holding the strings of our lives in my hands, ready to pull them tight. I spent hours crafting the perfect message to send to our closest friends. I wanted it to be impactful, to hit them like a freight train. I would make sure they understood the depths of her betrayal, the lies she had woven. I wanted them to see her for what she truly was, a woman who had shattered a marriage for a fleeting moment of pleasure. As I prepared for the execution of my plan, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. This was it. I was about to step into a new reality, one where I would no longer be the victim but the one in control. I would demolish her life just as she had built her lies. The days turned into a countdown as I meticulously finalized my plan. I had gathered enough evidence to launch my attack, and the anticipation was almost unbearable. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, a tangible mix of anger and excitement. I had spent countless nights thinking about how I would expose Sarah and Jake, and now the moment was finally within reach. I decided that the best time to reveal everything would be at our upcoming dinner party, a gathering we had planned with our closest friends. It was supposed to be a night of laughter and good food, but I would turn it into a night of revelation and chaos. I could already envision the shock on their faces when I unveiled the truth. I spent the days leading up to the event preparing myself for the confrontation. I practiced what I would say, rehearsing the words in my mind until they felt like a script. I wanted to be calm, collected, and unwavering. I couldn't afford to show any weakness. This was about reclaiming my power, about making sure that Sarah would never forget the depths of her betrayal. The night of the dinner party arrived, and I could feel the tension in the air. Sarah was bustling around the kitchen, putting the finishing touches on our meal. She seemed blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to hit. I watched her with a mix of anger and sadness. How could she act so normal, so carefree, while knowing what she had done? As our friends began to arrive, I put on a facade of happiness, greeting them with a smile while my heart raced beneath the surface. The laughter and chatter filled the room, creating a false sense of normalcy. I could feel the weight of the secret pressing down on me, and I knew I had to act soon. After dinner, as we settled into the living room with drinks in hand, I took a deep breath. It was time. I stood up, clinking my glass to get everyone's attention. "Hey, everyone, I have something I need to share," I said, my voice steady but my heart pounding. The room fell silent, and I could feel the curious eyes of my friends on me. I glanced at Sarah, who looked at me with a hint of confusion. I could see her trying to read my expression, but I was determined to keep my face impassive. "I want to talk about trust and betrayal," I continued, my voice unwavering. I could feel the tension mounting, and I knew I had their full attention. For the past few months, I've been dealing with something that has turned my life upside down. My wife, Sarah, has been unfaithful to me. Gasps filled the room, and I could see the shock on their faces. Sarah's expression shifted from confusion to horror as she realized what was happening. "What? No, that's not true," she exclaimed, but I pressed on, ignoring her protests. "I have proof," I said, pulling out my phone and displaying the messages between her and Jake. "This is the man she chose over our marriage. This is the man she decided to betray me with." The room erupted into chaos. Friends began to murmur among themselves, disbelief etched on their faces. I could feel the weight of their judgment bearing down on Sarah as she tried to defend herself. "You don't understand. It was a mistake," she shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. But I wouldn't let her off the hook that easily. "A mistake? You call sleeping with another man a mistake? You broke our vows, Sarah." I fired back, my voice rising. I could feel a sense of satisfaction as I watched her squirm, the facade of her perfect life crumbling around her. As the reality of my revelation sank in, I saw the looks of pity and shock from our friends. I had succeeded in my plan. I had exposed her. But as I watched her face twist in agony, I felt a pang of regret deep within me. Was this truly what I wanted? To see the woman I once loved in so much pain? The evening spiraled into chaos, with friends trying to comfort Sarah, while others looked to me for answers. I felt like a puppet master, pulling strings, but the strings were starting to tangle. I had wanted revenge, but now it felt like I was watching a tragic play unfold, and I was the one holding the script. As the night wore on, I found myself retreating to the kitchen, the noise of the living room fading into the background. I leaned against the counter, trying to catch my breath. Had I gone too far? Was this what I truly wanted? I could hear Sarah's cries from the other room, and it struck me that in my quest for revenge, I had lost sight of who I was. But it was too late to turn back now. I had to see this through to the end. I had to make sure that she understood the consequences of her actions. I had to make her feel the weight of the betrayal she had inflicted upon me. The aftermath of the dinner party was a whirlwind of emotions. Our friends left in shock, some offering half-hearted words of comfort to Sarah, while others shot me looks of disbelief. I felt like a villain in my own life story, but every ounce of guilt was drowned out by the satisfaction of having revealed the truth. I had executed my plan, and now Sarah was left to face the consequences. In the days that followed, the reality of what I had done began to settle in. Our home, once filled with laughter and love, was now a battleground. Sarah avoided me, her eyes puffy and red from crying, and I felt a strange mix of triumph and sorrow. I had wanted her to feel pain, but I hadn't anticipated how hollow it would feel to see her like this. Despite the turmoil, I couldn't help but feel empowered. I had taken control of my narrative, but the victory was bittersweet. I found myself questioning whether I had crossed a line that I could never uncross. I replayed the scene from the dinner party in my mind, Sarah's face contorted in anguish, and I wondered if I had truly gotten my revenge, or if I had simply destroyed everything we had built together. With each passing day, I saw less of Sarah, and the silence in the house became deafening. I could feel her slipping away, and I started to contemplate my next move. I had exposed her, but now what? I wanted to see her suffer, yes, but I also wanted her to understand the depth of her betrayal. I needed her to confront the reality of her actions, and that meant I had to engage her, even if it felt like stepping into a minefield. One evening, I decided to confront her again. I found her sitting on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, staring blankly at the television. The sight of her like this stirred something inside me, a mixture of anger and compassion. I hesitated, unsure of how to approach her. "Sarah," I began, my voice softer than I intended, "we need to talk." She turned to look at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of resentment and pain. What more is there to say? You've made your point. I just want to understand, I said, sitting down across from her. What were you thinking? Did any of this mean anything to you? Her expression hardened and she crossed her arms defensively. You wouldn't understand. You were always too busy with work. I felt alone. Alone, I echoed, incredulous. You chose to cheat on me. You could have talked to me about how you were feeling. We could have worked through it together. Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. It wasn't just about you being busy. I was unhappy. I wanted to feel alive again, and Jake made me feel that way. I didn't mean to hurt you. Didn't mean to hurt me. I interrupted, my voice rising. You shattered my trust. You destroyed everything we had. How can you say you didn't mean to hurt me? She looked away, her body trembling with the weight of her guilt. I know I messed up. I'm so sorry. I never wanted it to go this far. As she spoke, I felt a flicker of compassion pierce through the anger. I had wanted her to feel pain, but did I really want to see her broken? I started to grapple with the moral implications of my revenge. Was it worth it? Had I become the very thing I despised? I don't know if I can forgive you, Sarah, I said, my voice trembling. But I can't keep living like this either. I can't keep feeling this anger and resentment. It's eating me alive. She looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. What are you saying? I'm saying that maybe we need to figure out what's next. I can't pretend like everything is fine, but we can't keep living in this limbo either. We need to talk about what we want moving forward. The air was thick with tension as she processed my words. I could see her emotions shifting, hope battling with despair. Do you really want to try again? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, I admitted, but I can't just throw everything away without trying. I need to know if there's something left worth saving. As we sat in silence, the reality of our situation hung heavy between us. I had taken my revenge, but it hadn't brought me the satisfaction I had hoped for. Instead, it had left me feeling more lost than ever. I realized that revenge wouldn't heal my wounds. It would only deepen them. In that moment, I understood that I had a choice to make. I could either continue down this path of destruction or I could try to rebuild. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew that trust was a fragile thing, but perhaps there was a chance for redemption, for both of us. The following weeks were a whirlwind of emotions as Sarah and I navigated the aftermath of her infidelity. It was a delicate dance between anger and vulnerability, and the road ahead was anything but clear. We both had to confront our feelings, our past, and the reality of what our relationship had become. After our heart-to-heart conversation, we agreed to start attending couples therapy. It was a step I never thought I'd take, but I realized that if we wanted to move forward, we needed professional help to guide us through the wreckage. I was still grappling with feelings of betrayal, but I also felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could salvage something from the ashes. Our first therapy session was tense. We sat across from the therapist, who introduced herself and asked us to share our feelings. I could feel the weight of the unspoken words. In the room, the tension palpable. Sarah spoke first, her voice quivering as she recounted her feelings of loneliness and how that had led her to make such a devastating choice. I listened, trying to remain open, but inside I was still wrestling with anger. When it was my turn, I laid bare my feelings of betrayal. I can't believe you would risk everything we had for a fling, I said, my voice steady but filled with hurt. I trusted you, and now I feel like I don't even know who you are. I know, she replied, tears streaming down her face. I can't express how sorry I am. I made a terrible mistake, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. The therapist guided us through the session, encouraging us to express our emotions without judgment. It was exhausting but also cathartic. I began to realize that while I wanted to hold on to my anger, it was also preventing me from healing. I had to confront the reality of our relationship, the good and the bad, if we were to rebuild. As the sessions progressed, we began to peel back the layers of our relationship. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and the things we had taken for granted. It was painful to revisit those moments when we had drifted apart, but it was also illuminating. I started to understand that Sarah wasn't the only one who had contributed to the rift between us. I had been so focused on work and providing that I had neglected the emotional connection we once shared. I began to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, buried beneath the hurt and betrayal. We laughed together during sessions, reminiscing about the moments that had brought us joy. It was a reminder of what we had fought for and what still might be worth saving. But the shadows of her betrayal loomed large, and I often found myself spiraling back into anger. I would catch myself thinking about Jake, the construction worker who had become the embodiment of my pain. I couldn't help but wonder what made him so appealing to Sarah. Was it his carefree attitude, his physical presence? Did he represent everything I had failed to be in her eyes? One night, as I lay in bed beside Sarah, I couldn't shake the feeling of resentment. I turned to her and asked, "Do you still think about him?" The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. She hesitated before answering. "Sometimes, but it's not what you think. I regret everything. I hate that I let myself get caught up in that moment. I want to focus on us." Hearing her say that stirred something deep within me. I wanted to believe her, but doubt crept in like a thief in the night. I needed to confront my own insecurities if we were to move forward. I realized that trust would take time to rebuild, and that meant I had to be patient with both her and myself. As weeks turned into months, we began to make progress. We established new routines, focused on communication, and even found ways to reconnect on a deeper level. We started going on dates again, rediscovering the small joys of being together. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when the past threatened to resurface, but we fought through it. However, the ghost of Jake still haunted me. I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, and it became clear that I needed closure. I decided to confront him, not for Sarah's sake, but for my own. I needed to face the man who had invaded my life and taken something so precious from me. One afternoon, I drove to the construction site where Jake worked. My heart raced as I approached the area, the sounds of machinery and laughter filling the air. I spotted him, leaning against a truck, laughing with some coworkers. The sight of him ignited a fury within me, and I felt a rush of adrenaline as I walked towards him. "Jake!" I shouted, my voice carrying over the noise. He turned, his smile fading as he recognized me. "What do you want?" he asked, a hint of arrogance in his tone. "I want to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. He stepped closer, a smirk on his face. "About what?" "Your wife. I didn't think you'd have the guts to come here." I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "You think this is funny? You think what you did was a joke? You destroyed my marriage, man." His expression shifted, slightly, the cockiness fading. "Look, I didn't mean to hurt you. It was a fling. It didn't mean anything." "Didn't mean anything," I echoed, anger surging through me. "You think that's an excuse? You took advantage of her vulnerability. You knew she was married and you didn't care." He shrugged, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "It was just a moment. You should really take it up with her." "Believe me, I have," I replied, my voice low. "But this isn't just about her. You too. You need to understand the impact of your actions. You think it's okay to play with people's lives." For a moment we stood there, locked in a silent standoff. I could see the wheels turning in his mind, and I wondered if he truly understood the weight of what he had done. "Look, I'm sorry for what happened," he finally said, his tone shifting. "But you need to move on. It's not worth it to dwell on the past." I took a step closer, my voice firm. "You're right, it's not worth it. But you need to understand that your actions have consequences. I won't let you hurt anyone else like this." With that, I turned and walked away, feeling a sense of release wash over me. I had confronted my demons, and in doing so, I had taken another step toward reclaiming my life. As I drove home, I realized that I was no longer defined by Sarah's betrayal or Jake's arrogance. I was reclaiming my identity and my future, one step at a time. The journey wasn't over, but I felt a renewed sense of hope. I was ready to face whatever came next. The confrontation with Jake had been cathartic, a necessary step in my journey toward healing. As I drove home, I felt lighter, as if a significant weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I had faced the man who had caused me so much pain, and in doing so, I had taken back a piece of my power. But I knew that the real challenge lay ahead, rebuilding my relationship with Sarah. When I arrived home, I found her sitting on the couch, her expression a mix of worry and hope. She had been anxiously waiting for me to return, and I could see the question in her eyes. "How did it go?" she asked, her voice tentative. "It went fine," I said, taking a seat beside her. I confronted him. It felt good to finally say what I needed to say. She nodded, relief washing over her face. "I'm glad. I know it must have been hard for you." "It was," I admitted. "But I realized that this isn't just about him, it's about us. We can't keep living in the past if we want to move forward." Her eyes softened, and I could see the vulnerability beneath her facade. "I know. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to rebuild our trust. I've made mistakes, and I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I appreciate that, Sarah, but it's going to take time. Trust isn't something that can be rebuilt overnight." "I understand," she said, her voice steady. "I'm committed to working through this with you. I want to be better for us." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I wanted to believe that we could find our way back to each other. I wanted to believe that love could conquer the betrayal that had threatened to tear us apart. As the days turned into weeks, we continued our therapy sessions, focusing on communication and rebuilding our emotional connection. It was a slow process, filled with both breakthroughs and setbacks. There were moments when the pain of her betrayal resurfaced, and I would find myself spiraling back into anger. But we learned to confront those feelings together, to express our emotions without judgment. We started to carve out time for each other, rediscovering the small pleasures that had brought us joy before. We went on walks, cooked meals together, and even took weekend trips to reconnect. I found myself laughing again, and slowly but surely, the walls that had built up around my heart began to crumble. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I turned to her and said, "You know, I still have a long way to go, but I'm willing to try if you are." She smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm here for you, and I'm committed to this. I don't want to lose you again." In that moment, I felt a sense of reconciliation wash over me. We were both flawed individuals navigating the complexities of love and trust. I realized that while the scars of betrayal would always remain, they didn't have to define our future. We had the power to choose how we moved forward. As the months passed, I began to see the transformation in our relationship. We were learning to communicate openly, to express our needs and desires without fear of judgment. The intimacy we had lost was gradually being rebuilt, and I found myself falling in love with her all over again. But the journey wasn't without its challenges. There were moments of doubt, times when the past threatened to overshadow the present. I would catch myself replaying the memories of her betrayal, and I had to remind myself of how far we had come. It was a constant battle, but each time we faced it together, we emerged stronger. Eventually, I reached a point where I could look at Sarah without the weight of bitterness. I understood that forgiveness was a process, and I was willing to embrace it. I didn't want to be trapped in a cycle of resentment. I wanted to reclaim my life and my happiness. One evening, as we sat together reflecting on our journey, I took her hands in mine. "I want you to know that I forgive you, Sarah. It doesn't mean that I forget, but it means that I'm willing to move forward." Tears filled her eyes as she squeezed my hands. "Thank you. That means everything to me. I'm so grateful for your willingness to try." I leaned in and kissed her, a gesture filled with renewed love and understanding. In that moment, I felt a sense of closure, a final chapter in the story of our pain. The road ahead would still have its bumps, but I was ready to face them with her by my side. As I looked out at the horizon, I felt a sense of hope for the future. We had both learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and the complexities of human relationships. I knew that while the scars of betrayal would always be a part of our story, they wouldn't define us. Together, we had the power to rebuild, to create a new narrative filled with love, forgiveness, and a deeper connection. In the end, I realized that life is not just about the mistakes we make, but also about how we choose to rise from them. I was ready to embrace our future, hand in hand with the woman who had once broken my heart, but had also shown me the strength of love and the possibility of redemption. And so, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I whispered a silent promise to myself and to Sarah. We would continue to fight for each other, and together, we would forge a new path forward. This is our story, a tale of betrayal, revenge, and ultimately love.